When Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, the goal was simple: take Kyiv in days, remove the government, and install a pro-Russian regime. But the blitzkrieg failed. Ukrainian forces held the capital. Russian columns stalled. The momentum collapsed. So the Kremlin shifted focus. To the south, where Mariupol, already surrounded, offered a new opportunity. A strategic city on the Sea of Azov, the missing link between Donetsk and Crimea. If Kyiv was unreachable, Mariupol would be taken at any cost. Mariupol was no ordinary city. It was Ukraine's second-largest port, a key industrial hub, and the last barrier to a land corridor from Russia to Crimea. For Moscow, its capture meant full control of the Sea of Azov. For Ukraine, its loss would cut off troops in the east and fracture its southern defense. From the war's first day, Mariupol was encircled, squeezed from the east by separatist fighters and from the west by Russian Marines out of Berdyansk. By March, the city was surrounded. The siege had begun. As Russian forces advanced on multiple fronts across Ukraine, Mariupol was quickly prioritized in the southern campaign. The plan was a classic pincer movement. From the east, Russian-backed separatists from the Donetsk People's Republic, already operating within 20 kilometers of the city, launched probing attacks, aiming to breach defenses near the village of Shyrokine. From the west, the Russian 58th Combined Arms Army and elite 810th Naval Infantry Brigade advanced from Berdyansk, rolling along the E-105 highway under heavy artillery cover. At the same time, missile strikes and air raids targeted Mariupol's communications towers, fuel depots, and power substations, softening the city for siege. Within days, Russia began choking Mariupol's outer lines. Ukrainian checkpoints in nearby towns, Manhush, Volnovakha, and Sartana, fell under sustained attack. Roads were cut off. No aid could enter. No defenders could retreat. The city was isolated. From the outside, it looked like a swift tactical victory. But inside the city, a different battle was about to begin. The bombardment was relentless. Grad rockets and Smerch launchers fired day and night. Russian jets struck high-value targets and residential zones alike. Gas pipelines exploded. Water stations were demolished. By mid-March, over 80% of the city's infrastructure was damaged or destroyed. Entire districts flattened. Hospitals turned to triage centers. Supermarkets were looted, then obliterated. But Mariupol did not fall. Ukraine's forces adapted, moving through back alleys, operating in small cells, turning apartment blocks into fortified positions. What began as an encirclement turned into a brutal house-to-house war. Urban warfare demands close quarters, high risk, and constant movement. In Mariupol, it became an art of survival. Ukrainian troops booby-trapped entry points, mined intersections, and used underground tunnels to reposition unseen. Enemy advances were halted with grenades, RPGs, and sniper fire from civilian buildings. Russian forces advanced behind armor, relying on artillery to clear the path. But in tight city blocks, their vehicles became easy targets. The front line shifted daily. Some buildings changed hands multiple times. No clear territory, only bloody ground. Trapped between two armies, nearly 400,000 civilians endured the unthinkable. There was no electricity, no water, no heat. Thousands lived in dark, freezing basements for weeks. Humanitarian corridors were announced, then shelled. Ceasefires were declared, then broken. Each side blamed the other. Civilians attempted to escape in convoys of private cars, only to be turned back or attacked. Entire families disappeared during evacuation attempts. Mariupol's population dropped by hundreds of thousands. Those who remained faced starvation and disease, victims of a siege that showed no mercy. On March 16th, Mariupol's Central Theater, the Donetsk Academic Drama Theater, became the site of one of the war's most haunting moments. Over 1,000 civilians were sheltering inside. On both sides of the building, the word "children" was painted in giant white letters visible from the sky. Then the airstrike came. The structure collapsed into rubble. Survivors clawed through the ruins. Hundreds were killed. Russia denied the bombing. Ukraine called it a war crime. For the outside world, the theater became a symbol of the siege of the civilians trapped and of a war waged in city centers. By April, Ukrainian positions across Mariupol were falling. One by one, districts went dark. The 36th Marine Brigade broke into smaller groups, some attempting to break out. Others were overrun. Ammunition was running low. Medics worked without morphine or sterile bandages. The defenders retreated to their final position, the last stronghold of the city, a place that was more fortress than factory, Azovstal. As the rest of Mariupol fell into Russian hands, one place still stood. The Azovstal Iron and Steel Works, an industrial giant built in the Soviet era to survive bombardment, nuclear war, and blockade. Sprawling over 10 square kilometers, it was more fortress than factory. Its core was a labyrinth of reinforced bunkers, blast-proof tunnels, underground rail lines, fuel reserves, and chambers that ran 6 levels deep. A perfect stronghold, but now a trap. Inside, roughly 2,000 Ukrainian troops regrouped, including remnants of the Azov Regiment, the 36th Marine Brigade, National Guard, and Border Guards. They were wounded, undersupplied, but determined. And they were not alone. Nearly 1,000 civilians, families of soldiers, factory workers, city residents, had taken shelter inside, hoping the thick walls would protect them from airstrikes and artillery. From above, Russia began the final phase of the siege. Precision-guided bombs, bunker busters, thermobaric weapons, drones, and artillery rained down on Azovstal day and night. Russian jets conducted low-altitude runs to avoid Ukrainian manpads still hidden in the city's core. Drones marked targets from thermal signatures inside the plant. The sound of bombardment never stopped. The defenders lived underground, sleeping in shifts, rationing food, sterilizing wounds with vodka and headlamp lights. There were no medics left. Amputations were performed in basements. Soldiers fought with one arm bandaged or limping on splints. From inside, they broadcast to the world. Videos posted to social media and shared with journalists showed soldiers urging evacuation for the civilians trapped with them. Their messages were translated into multiple languages. They begged for humanitarian corridors, not surrender. One Marine recorded a final message to his mother. Another held up a note reading, "We're still here. Still alive." Ukraine's leadership pleaded for international help, not military, but diplomatic. They proposed extraction by third-party nations. Turkey offered naval evacuation. The UN and Red Cross negotiated safe corridors, but Moscow refused. Putin, on April 21st, ordered Azovstal not to be stormed, but sealed off entirely. Block it so that not even a fly can escape. Still, the defenders fought. In the darkness below ground, they launched counterattacks, night raids on Russian positions around the perimeter, quick strikes to disrupt siege lines, recover weapons, or evacuate wounded. Above ground, fires burned from every corner of the facility. Smoke from the steelworks mixed with chemical stench, creating a permanent haze over the city. As days turned to weeks, the end was near. On May 16th, after more than 80 days of resistance, Ukraine's high command gave the order, "Preserve lives." The defenders began to surrender in groups under international observation. They emerged from tunnel entrances and blast doors, carrying stretchers, raising white flags, still wearing torn uniforms and homemade bandages. Some were taken to Russian-controlled Olenivka. Others were declared missing. The fate of many remained uncertain. Some would later be part of prisoner exchanges. Others would not return. But their stand had reshaped the war. Azovstal was never meant to be a battlefield, but for 86 days, it became the final redoubt of Mariupol. For the rest of Ukraine, Mariupol was declared fully under Russian control in May 2022, but it came at a cost. The city was obliterated, tens of thousands killed, hundreds of thousands displaced, and billions in infrastructure lost. Russia now had its land corridor to Crimea. The Sea of Azov was under full Russian control. For the Kremlin, it was a victory, hard-fought, but critical. Yet Mariupol also tied up elite Russian units for months. It exposed Russia's reliance on siege tactics and blunt force over speed or precision. And it gave Ukraine a story of resistance, of sacrifice, and of how even surrounded forces can shape a battlefield far beyond their walls.